Coca-Cola was an incredibly popular drink in pre-war Nazi Germany. Here's a Coca-Cola sign and members of the SA in circa 1933. Coca-Cola was a major sponsor of the Berlin Olympics in 1936 with Coke branding alongside Nazi iconography. Coca-Cola Germany did their best to associate Coca-Cola with Germany and try and make it a German drink rather than an American drink. In 1939, Coke sold 4.5 million cases of cola in Nazi Germany. In 1940, Coca-Cola Germany began developing a drink which could be brewed entirely within Germany with no reliance on outside suppliers. This is what became Fanta. It was manufactured mainly from fruit shavings, primarily apple fibre and pulp, from beet sugar, and from milk whey left over from cheese production. Tasty. In 1941, with the entry of Japan into the war, Germany was declared an enemy combatant, and the export of Coke syrup from the United States to Germany ceased. Fanta thus became the de facto German soft drink. Fanta continued to be manufactured and bottled up until the end of the war in 1945, and at some point during that year, Fanta ceased production. After the war, Coke was again imported to Germany, regaining its popularity. In April 1955, Coca-Cola reintroduced Fanta, but now with a new orange-flavoured recipe, much more akin to what we're familiar with today. Coca-Cola revived the Fanta name largely just due to convenience. They already had the copyright to it, and they certainly wouldn't have thought that anyone cared it had roots inside Nazi Germany. They didn't really think anyone would pay attention, I suspect. Fanta celebrated its 75th anniversary in 2015, and Coke released Fanta Classic, a version of the wartime recipe in the original bottle in Germany in that year. An upbeat ad proclaimed, 75 years ago, resources for our beloved Coke were scarce. They didn't make any mention in the ad as to why there was a scarcity 75 years prior to that. They also said, quote, "We are bringing back the feeling of the good old times," unquote. As you can imagine, there was a severe and immediate backlash. Naturally enough, they quickly pulled that ad. I believe they re-released a different version with that reference removed. Obviously, there's a much more nuanced story to this, and I've put links down in the description if you want to explore more. The Caesar salad was actually invented in Tijuana, Mexico, not in Italy. The story goes that it was created by Italian immigrant and restaurateur Cesare Cardini on the evening of July 4th, 1924, when, as restaurateur owner of Caesar's Place, on the fly he whipped up a salad using romaine lettuce and whatever ingredients he had to hand, including garlic-flavoured oil, eggs, Parmesan cheese, lemons and Worcestershire sauce. Word travelled fast, and the Caesar salad became a sensation from coast to coast. Did you know Australia is wider than the moon, spanning about 4,000 kilometres from east to west, while the moon's diameter is 3,400 kilometres? The moon wins on total surface area, of course, because it's a sphere. The word galaxy comes from the Greek word for milky, so the Milky Way galaxy actually means galaxy way galaxy. The universe's average colour is called cosmic latte. Astronomers discovered that the light emanating from galaxies averages to a beigey white colour. Comets smell like rotten eggs, urine, burning matches and almonds. Did you know that owls can't move their eyeballs? Did you know that owls swallow small animals whole and let their stomach dissolve everything that it can, and then compact the bones and feathers into a neat little pellet and spit it back out? Efficient, but not exactly refined dining. The world's lightest mammal is the bumblebee bat. It weighs roughly as much as 2 M&Ms. And that's American measurements because they can use anything but metric. Did you know there are more people living in China today than there were on all of Earth 150 years ago? Did you know the Spanish national anthem has no words? Did you know the baby shark dance is one of the most viewed YouTube videos with over 17 billion views? Can you imagine the money that's been made on that? Did you know that KFC is a traditional Christmas dinner in Japan? It is. Did you know that Marcel Proust's À la recherche du temps perdu, or In Search of Lost Time, is the longest book in the world with an estimated 9,609,000 characters and published in 7 volumes? By comparison, Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace is roughly 3 million characters across 1,300 pages in a single volume. Did you know the Night Watch's cloaks in Game of Thrones were made out of IKEA rugs? It's true, they say. Did you know Pocahontas was the first Disney princess with a tattoo? Did you know that Joseph Williams, the lead singer of Toto, the band who sang Africa, is famous composer John Williams' son? The fear of long words is known, ironically, as hippopotamonstrosesquipedaliophobia. Wow. In 1967, Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King covered the cost of Julia Roberts' hospital birth. It turns out that Roberts' parents couldn't afford the bill, and the King's gesture was a heartfelt payback. Julia's parents, who ran a theatre school in Atlanta, welcomed the King children as students when they had trouble finding a place that would accept them because they were black. Babies used to hang outside windows to get some fresh air. In order to give their babies some proper fresh air, parents in 1920s would suspend their tots outside their window in a wire-enclosed baby cage. Invented in 1922, these portable cages were mostly used by people living in apartment dwellings. And by people, we of course mean Americans. Nobody knows who invented the US-style fire hydrant because the patent was destroyed in a fire at the US Patent Office in 1836. There's some delicious irony. Those fluffy white things drifting peacefully overhead aren't as light as they seem. A cloud can weigh upwards of 550 tonnes. That's the weight of the water, of course. Did you know that in 1932, Australia declared war on emus that were destroying our crops? A drought in Australia caused some 20,000 emus to move inland. The government sent in World War I veterans to assist the beleaguered farmers, and though they were outfitted with machine guns and various other military accoutrements, they soon found themselves overwhelmed by their flightless foes. The birds emerged victorious in what's now known as the Great Emu War. Some Buddhist monks practiced Sokushinbutsu, slowly starving themselves to death to achieve enlightenment through self-mummification. A 1,000-year-old Chinese Buddha statue was taken to a Dutch hospital for a CT scan in 2017. The scan revealed a mummified monk inside the golden figure, with its internal organs missing. The monk was believed to have self-mummified before being encased in the statue. You're probably familiar with Fabergé eggs, most of which were made for the Romanov family in their last few decades as Russian rulers. Fabergé didn't just make eggs, however, and among all his intricate treasures, one unexpected subject stands out, a potato, just under 4 inches long, crafted in a realistic, irregular shape. Yep, a Fabergé potato. Cotton candy consists of just 2 simple ingredients, air and sugar, making it about the last thing a dental health professional would promote. Yet the sweet treat was invented by Tennessee dentist William James Morrison in 1897. He worked with a local candy maker to build what they call the electric candy machine, which produced a cloud-like confection they dubbed fairy floss. The first known use of OMG was in a letter to Winston Churchill. The acronym OMG became popular as early internet slang in the 1990s, but its first known use actually dates back to a letter that was written to Winston Churchill in 1917 during his time in the British Navy. The letter was from First Sea Lord John Arbuthnot Fisher, who wrote, "I hear that a new order of knighthood is on the tapis. OMG, oh my God, shower it on the Admiralty." Important events in German history have frequently occurred on the 9th of November, dubbed Schicksalstag, the Day of Fate. In 1918, Kaiser Wilhelm II abdicated. In 1923, Adolf Hitler's Nazis attempted the Munich Putsch, and in 1938, they attacked Jews on Kristallnacht. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. What's the best birthday present you ever got? On the 1st of January 1886, the British government gave Queen Victoria an extraordinary birthday gift, the country of Burma. Did you know that fewer than 10 people witnessed the first powered flight by the Wright brothers on the 17th of December 1903? To the last man. Many know the Battle of Stalingrad as one of the bloodiest during the German-Soviet War. Pavlov's house held out for 2 months at Stalingrad. The Germans lost more men attacking it than they did in taking Paris. The only statue from classical Rome to remain largely unmolested and on public display for nearly 2,000 years is the equestrian statue of Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Erected in the late 2nd century AD, it was finally put inside a museum in the 1980s. The unsinkable stoker. Arthur Priest was a stoker on the Titanic. Stokers were among the unlikeliest crewmen to survive a sinking ship. Seawater would flood their compartments first, drowning them. The rest of the crew would scramble to shut watertight doors to save the ship, trapping their comrades in the compartments below. Somehow, though, in chronological order, Priest survived. a collision on RMS Asturias maiden voyage in 1908, a collision on Titanic's sister ship RMS Olympic in 1911, the sinking of RMS Titanic in 1912, the First World War sinking of HMS Alcantara in 1916, the First World War sinking of Titanic's other sister ship, HMAHS Britannic, in 1916, and the First World War sinking of the SS Donegal in 1917. Lucky or unlucky? I'm not quite so sure. The Tower of London's last prisoner. Having flown to Scotland in May 1941 in an attempt to negotiate peace with Britain, Rudolf Hess, the deputy leader of the German Nazi Party, was briefly interned at the Tower of London. He was the last state prisoner to be held there. Luckiest man in the world? Japanese engineer Tsutomu Yamaguchi survived the atomic bombings in both Hiroshima and Nagasaki during World War II. Yamaguchi was in Hiroshima on a business trip when the first atomic bomb was dropped on the 6th of August 1945. Despite being only 3 kilometres away from the blast, Yamaguchi survived but was seriously burned and temporarily blinded. The following day, he began the journey back to his hometown of Nagasaki, arriving on the 8th of August. On the 9th of August, he was a little over a mile from the epicentre of the second atomic bomb when it was dropped on Nagasaki. He survived but was injured again, along with his wife and infant daughter. So, luckiest or maybe unluckiest man in history? The shortest war in history was the Anglo-Zanzibar War on the 27th of August 1896. It started at 9:02 a.m. and ended at 9:40 a.m. A single British soldier was injured. It followed the refusal of the Zanzibari Sultan to step down after the British issued an ultimatum. British warships fired on his position and the Sultan surrendered. On the 28th of January 1896, Walter Arnold drove his horseless carriage through Paddock Wood in Kent at a reckless 8 miles an hour, 4 times the 2 mile an hour speed limit. He also had no man with a red flag preceding him, as required by law. Arnold was chased down by a police officer on a bicycle and later fined £4 7 shillings, of which 10 shillings was for speeding, the world's first recorded speeding ticket. During the Victorian era, post-mortem photography became a popular and macabre way to preserve memories of deceased family members, particularly children who died young. Photographers used elaborate techniques to pose dead bodies as if they were alive, including propping up corpses in chairs, painting open eyes on closed eyelids, and arranging family portraits with living relatives alongside the deceased. These memento mori photographs often represented the only visual record families had of their loved ones, making them precious keepsakes despite their disturbing nature. Did you know that Roman Emperor Nero married his male slave in a public wedding? Emperor Nero shocked Roman society by conducting a formal wedding ceremony with his male slave Sporus, complete with a wedding dress, dowry, and public celebration, attended by thousands of Roman citizens. Nero had Sporus castrated and then married him in a lavish ceremony that parodied traditional Roman marriage customs, treating the slave as his official wife and empress. Nero's marriage to Sporus reflected his complete disregard for Roman social convention and his desire to shock the conservative Roman establishment through increasingly outrageous behaviour. You might assume that the Leaning Tower of Pisa started leaning relatively recently, but in fact it began tilting during its construction in 1173, when builders realised that the soft clay soil underneath the foundation was causing the tower to sink unevenly, but they continued building anyway for nearly 200 years. Medieval engineers attempted various solutions to correct the lean, including making upper floors slightly curved to compensate for the tilt, but their efforts only made the structural problems worse and more visually obvious. Construction on the tower was halted multiple times over 2 centuries as different architects tried to solve the leaning problem, with each new team adding their own experimental modifications that further destabilised the structure. The tower's lean became progressively worse throughout the medieval period, reaching angles that should have caused complete collapse, but somehow remained standing due to fortunate coincidences of weight distribution and soil compression. Medieval residents of Pisa initially viewed the Leaning Tower as an embarrassing construction failure and architectural disaster, never imagining that the structural defect would eventually become their city's most famous tourist attraction. Did you know the flag of Paraguay is the only one to feature a different design on the front and back? The current flag was inspired by the colours of the French tricolour and is believed to signify independence and liberty. It's unusual because it differs on its obverse and reverse sides. The obverse of the flag shows the national coat of arms and the reverse shows the seal of the Treasury. Now you know.
That's all this time, but I'll be back with more facts.